Tom, are you okay?
I lost her.
Her?
She was going to be this epic, trilogy-worthy character. I was going to be the hottest writer in Hollywood. But I can't get past Act 1!
You need some writers group therapy. Hello and welcome to Writers Group Therapy.
I'm Tom.
And I'm Roshni. We're writers helping writers. Are you ready for your session? The doctors are in. And if you like what you hear, make sure you subscribe and share it with your friends. You can find us at writersgrouptherapy.com, online at WG Therapy on Twitter and Instagram, individually.
I'm Tom_Loveman on Twitter and Tom Loveman on Instagram.
And I am at Moonlily Music on Instagram and at Roshni Lamino on Twitter.
All right, this is a special podcast. I'm excited about this one today. We have a very large group of creative people on the line. I say we because I was one of a group of writers who was top 10 finalist in the PlayStation Emerging Filmmaker Program back in 2017. PlayStation had a contest. People could submit their pitches for TV shows for their View network. It was free, so they had like 800 to 1,000 submissions. And they brought the top 10 teams, because some of these are teams and solo and team writers. We came to LA and we had a cool 3-day mentoring session and pitch session with the Sony executives. And the top 5 chosen had their pilots actually made. I was curious what everyone was up to since the event took place. So I emailed all of them, and I've got about 8 teams on the line here, and they're going to share their experience and what they're doing now. Welcome, everybody.
Hello.
Hey. Glad to be here.
Here we go.
This is a very large group, so we're going to put backgrounds and links to all their stuff in the show notes. So we'll talk about that more later. But we're just going to start off with a real simple question. One thing I'm really interested in is, how did placing or winning the contest help you in your writing career? Did you get representation? Did you get more pitch meetings? Let's start with one of our winners, Shira, Rosenweig. Shira was one of the top finalists. She did the sci-fi show Orthus. And so how have you been doing? How has the PlayStation contest affected your career?
Well, I have a produced pilot now, which is hard to accomplish when you're an unknown writer in Hollywood. And it definitely opened some doors for me in terms that I got a lot of meetings out of it with executives pretty much in every studio and network that probably I would not have been able to before. So that was great. I got a lot of contacts. I had representation before the contest, so that hasn't changed. But definitely my agents called it a victory lap. So after the pilot got made, they had leverage to set me up with meetings pretty much around town. And that was wonderful. I wish I could tell you that I got a gig out of it, but that hasn't happened yet.
Rob Sorensen, how about you, Rob? You worked on The Forgotten Coast, a drama, right?
Yeah, so mine ultimately didn't get made, so I guess I'm speaking as one of the teams that didn't get their pilot produced by PlayStation. And nobody really reached out to me for winning the contest or anything, but I have used it personally to leverage meetings with different producers and managers. I was able to get a few managers to read that script that we wrote, The Forgotten Coast, after the PlayStation event, and subsequently I've been able to get a few managers to read other scripts I've written and work with some producers, but nothing like tangible has come from it, essentially.
Max, you and your Max Cannon and his partner Brandon Sullivan did the comedy band in Boise. What have you guys been doing there?
So prior to the show, Brandon and I, we're old childhood friends, and we both work at a local hospital down in the operating rooms as anesthesia technicians, and we're still doing that. We've been doing that for about 7 years now. And the show kind of came as an opportunity. Just he and I we've done little short films in the area. Boise has a really specific film scene, which is actually the subject of our show. And it's kind of hard in this area because it's not the same as like somewhere that we can easily get meetings. And I mean, now it might be a little easier because everyone's doing everything online, but at the time I think there was a way more of a need or a feeling that we had to kind of be in person. But since then, I've kind of just had a few meetings with people around town, worked on a few different shorts. And actually, both Brandon and I, after that happened, we play a lot of games, and that's kind of a field that we're both really interested in. And we both actually have gone back to school. We're going to Boise State University, and we're studying game design right now. And we want to take a lot of that stuff that we learned in writing our pilot, and we want to focus a lot on taking narrative approaches in games and see kind of how we can work on that. And then additionally, actually, Rob and I, we talk pretty regularly, and we're working on a few different projects together too.
Vanessa King and her partner Miranda Sajak were one of the winning finalists with the. You had a drama as well, Two Roads.
Yeah, we had a drama, Two Roads. It's interesting to do a drama as 30 minutes, but yeah, that was something that we had.
And how did your success with that pan out for you in other opportunities?
I don't know tangibly. I wouldn't say, like, we had a lot of production companies reach out to us for different ideas afterwards. But Miranda and I, we actually come from the entertainment industry anyway. I've worked in it for about 17 years myself. So for me, I at the same time sort of saw a promotion at work. I don't know if it was tangibly directly related to the pilot, but it probably gave me a little bit more in my back pocket for that. And I know Miranda has kind of received an influx of more requests. She works as a script reader and analyst and for a number of different production companies and studios, and I believe that she sort of had an influx on that side too.
Tyler Terribile and Daniel Omrani, I'm horrible at this, had the other comedy in the group, The Sweet Shop. How do you guys fare after the contest?
Yeah, so ours was one of them that didn't get made, but we used it as a stepping stone. I mean, we used it to get some meetings with producers, but after the competition, like, we just wrote our pilot. Like, I mean, when we went into the Sony competition, we didn't have our pilot written, so I mean, we used that just to kick our butts and just get to writing, and that's what we did. And we haven't like been working on it like recently, but I mean, we've had like some edits on it recently.
Yeah, we've had edits on it recently, and then just kind of got us in gear for writing more stuff off of that. I wish we could say we had like something really tangible come out of it.
Right.
We didn't, but
yeah, right now that we're a core team, we're working on a feature right now, so that's what
Yeah, that's what's up.
Okay, and I think our last team here is Kevin Chen and Bryce Irvin. How are you guys doing?
Hey, good.
Yeah, really, really good.
Yeah, how has things gone for you since the contest?
I can go first, or Bryce, you want to?
Sure, go ahead, Kev.
All right, great. So, well, when we did Indigo, Bryce was still at school at Georgia Tech, and I just got graduated. So it's been a little bit of a ride for us. I know for me, I'm actually primarily more of an actor. So I've been focusing on that side of things. So I guess, like with everyone else, I didn't necessarily get something tangible out of it, but they gave me a lot of a better understanding of just how the process of everything in the entertainment industry works. So, like, as an actor, I can take that into better consideration because not every actor, can understand how getting a pitch through any type of door works, and that just lets me appreciate everything more. And yeah, that's kind of what we've been doing. Bryce and I had developed Indigo a little bit more since then, but we were kind of not really sure where to go after everything. But Bryce also has been doing a lot of cool stuff too, so I'll let you take that.
Yeah. So since the competition, I've been finishing up school at Georgia Tech. I actually just graduated, so that's been fun. So our Kevin and I's partnership has been like when we both kind of have time to work on stuff between my going to school and his uh, blooming acting career. We sit down and kind of like figure out stuff. I don't think that when we did the competition, we had a pilot fully written out at the time either. So after the competition, we fully wrote the pilot. We kind of outlined our season and kind of just tried to
Oh
figure out where
yeah.
to go from there. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess everything kind of jumbles up together, but yeah, we've definitely made a lot of changes since then, which is
hmm
interesting.
So I guess what we
Cool.
got from it was a lot of inspiration to fully flesh out our idea, which we're pretty in love with.
Hmm.
Now, Vanessa, you brought up an interesting point, and anybody else, feel free to jump in. So, your drama was half an hour. Was there a restriction where they said that the pilots all had to be half an hour, no matter what the genre?
Sure was. That was, we actually pitched it. Two Roads is very interesting because we initially our idea was taken, we had it as a 1 hour drama, which was our, even in our pitch. And then we, I have to say this is off the record. I have to figure out how to say this appropriately. So excuse me while I try and fix my wording.
Okay.
But basically we were given the opportunity after a lot of back and forth discussion, and I mean months of back and forth discussion, to write our own pilot. And when we had seen what the pilot that they had, that the production company had initially written with a different writer, it was, they turned it into a comedy, which was never really our direction for the pilot that we pitched. So we ended up being able to, pitch it basically again and say this is how we would write it, and that was the main challenge, was turning it into a 30-minute drama. So we ended up, I think, hopefully successfully doing that. It's hard as a premise pilot to establish a world and characters in 30 minutes. So I think at times we were debating between developing character and developing plot. And it was an interesting sort of dichotomy to like what do we choose to develop? What's more important when you're setting off in a world? So, but yeah, everybody was given 30 minutes.
Wow. So then, for everybody else who had their pilot made or maybe saw a lot of rewrites in the process, did you feel that once, PlayStation got involved, your creation suddenly changed into something you weren't sure what it was anymore? I mean, because a half-hour drama, that's weird. So that's not standard.
I mean, I'm speaking from my experience.
Hmm.
My issue, and the deviation from our initial pitch wasn't really a PlayStation, uh, I guess wasn't really a PlayStation decision from what I understand. They sort of allowed everybody to sort of take it on their own. But that's from my perspective, and I know there's other people in the competition who probably have had other experiences. So I don't want to speak on behalf of them.
I think Shira also, you said you can
Yeah.
speak to this.
So with Orthus, it was originally also a 1 hour drama. Like the original script that I submitted to them was a 1 hour drama, and they basically told me we can afford 4 days of shooting and 6 locations, so half of the script has to go. You have to cut it in half. At which point, I mean, it wasn't really an issue about a half-hour drama being weird, because in the age of digital, you don't really have any time constraints. For example, The Mandalorian on Disney Plus is a half-hour drama, so it's not really a problem. It wasn't really a problem in that regard. But when they said that, it became, at least to me, it became obvious that they weren't really making a TV show or a TV pilot as much as they were making a proof of concept. So the runtime wasn't really an issue. but I had to obviously rewrite the script as kind of a proof of concept introduction. And it very much changed the perspective of what was happening.
Interesting. And Max, also, you can speak to this?
Yeah, so I think the nature of the competition is really interesting because it kind of fluctuated just feeling wise, like emotionally, between feeling like a competition and then sometimes you're like, no, this is like like a professional pitch or a professional production. And it would, sometimes you'd be reminded it's one or the other. And what was really interesting was honestly working with PlayStation. It went really well. The production company though, they had a lot to maintain, and I think the projects were pitched to independent filmmakers, and independent filmmakers, they normally, at least in the field that I work in for it, it's you work on small projects and you get really attached to them. And so it's kind of like pitching a show from the perspective of a bunch of writers, and writers get really like, we don't want to change our thing. We came in and we had this idea from the very beginning. And so I think we came in and we pitched a show that we compared a lot to It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. And, PlayStation approved that. And then when we started getting other creatives involved, it didn't feel as much as though we were kind of taking on these creator roles, but we were kind of taking writer roles. And so we were kind of making changes to what other people wanted. And so I think we lost a little bit of that ownership that we were initially attached to. And it's awesome to have a produced pilot, and it's very professional, and I'm there's a lot of content in it that I'm happy with. But I think that it's kind of like an eye opener to like how much things can change, because for someone like me, that this was a really big leap in my filmmaking career compared to what I was doing before.
Cool. That brings up a question I was wondering, because I was one of the 10 finalists that didn't win. So my pilot was not made, and therefore the rights to it just reverted right back to me. So for those of you who did win, does PlayStation still own your rights? Can you then take your pilot and go pitch elsewhere now that they have not bought it? Or can you rework it and then pitch it differently? And then those of us who, like I said, myself, we can still go out and pitch our pilot, as is, because it wasn't, under any, contract with Sony. Shira?
Yeah, so I don't own it anymore. The IP belongs to PlayStation and the production company who made the pilots, Ideas United. So I would say it's a bittersweet kind of thing. I mentioned that I got a lot of meetings out of this pilot. So in some of them, executives told me, I wish we got our hands on Orthus earlier because it's original high concept and very marketable and could have been bigger. So I don't know, maybe they were just being polite, or maybe like I would never even have gotten access to these people if not for the produced pilot. But I do feel that if Orthus as a TV show and as an IP kind of fizzles and dies with this 25-minute long proof of concept that not a lot of people got to see, then that's a missed opportunity, because now that I don't own the IP, I can't push for it to go any further.
Yeah, I've actually thought of contests sometimes as a double-edged sword. Roshni's mentioned this as well, where you have to read the fine print, because some contests, can tie up your IP if you win. And sometimes I think it was some songs or some song contests Roshni mentioned, where if you write a song for a contest, they would then own it, and that was just it. So you have to, be careful what you wish for, I suppose. Anybody else have similar experience or feelings about that?
I have looked at it a little bit, and yeah, I think that PlayStation, that's a big part of it, is PlayStation's ownership over it, because Sony and PlayStation, while they're the same thing, they're very different department wise. And PlayStation is clearly kind of making this initiative to move into way more games, because so for a while I actually spent 3 years covering the games industry for a family friendly entertainment site. And that was like a big point of contention within that industry, is that, they thought that Xbox, for example, they were trying to make content comparable to this, and that kind of was putting a lot of people off. And so I think a competition like this hit at just a moment where they kind of realized, like, oh, we'll test the waters on it, and then they realized that PlayStation as a brand, that's not the direction that they wanted to go.
Yeah, I felt like that's kind of what happened, and just last October, the PlayStation View channel shut down. Yeah, and anybody else have feelings about it? I kind of feel like in some ways I got lucky that I didn't win, because now I can keep working on my project and still try to pitch it.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
kind of feel the same way as you, Tom. Our project didn't get made either, The Forgotten Coast, but it was optioned by Sony Interactive Entertainment, and so I've used that line in many emails and gotten responses based off that line, that I had a project optioned by Sony Interactive Entertainment. And I can't say if that's just as good as having a pilot made, but I'm able to say that without giving the rights away. So I don't know, like you were saying, it's a double-edged sword for the winners.
Kevin?
Yeah, I mean, I think just like we mentioned a little bit before, but it was I think what we would have made if we had won with Indigo would have been so different from what it became in like under 6 months when we continued to reiterate it. So I felt like for us, we were very, it was like kind of bitter. It was also pretty bittersweet, but I guess for different reasons, because one, we obviously wanted this idea to be out there and we wanted to try it. And, we were both really early in our careers. We still are. So having something like that and just having a pilot at like 23 and 22, I think that's how old we were, would have been really awesome. But then, conversely, because we've got everything back and we were able to work on it, we feel a lot more comfortable repitching it right now. So it's just been really nice to be able to have that in our pockets.
Cool. Yeah. I just want to say before I continue, I think we're all winners, by the way. You guys are all great. Tyler? Dan?
Yeah, so I was just going to say, I think we kind of feel the same way. Our pilot didn't get made. So I think, we kind of feel good, like, that we have our pilot back still.
Yeah, just like Kevin, I mean, we worked like Sweet Shop, like, so much after the competition. Like, we wrote the pilot, like, when we're writing the pilot, we're like, oh, we didn't think this could happen.
Yeah.
But it's like a double-edged sword, though, because it's like, I mean, at one time, like, on one side, you can be like, well, I have so many ideas, but you're always going to have new ideas. It's like you need to make something eventually.
And I think, part of it too is like, I think pretty much any production company, you're going to have to, maybe compromise a little bit somewhere,
Yeah.
whether that's a lot or a little. I think to some extent, like, you got to work with the production company. But I guess I also wanted, if it's okay, if I wanted to ask, like, everyone here, if for everyone who got their pilot made, like, did Sony do anything to try to make more episodes, or was there talks of that, or pitching it around? Yeah, obviously before it got shut down.
That's a good question. Vanessa, you were going to respond to that last question anyway, so why don't you take that?
Yeah, sure. I can take that. From what I understand, and what I was told, and I was definitely one of the persistent ones that I'm sure the production company got tired of hearing from after a while. From what I was told, they sort of were letting Sony had no idea, or no concept beyond putting it on their channel. Like, that was sort of, from what I understand, could be wrong, but it was sort of just going to live there. And then I think what happened was when they decided that they were going to, shut everything, that they just sort of, this was one of the first things that they scrapped. I had heard that the production company was like looking for places to put these, but I that obviously never came to fruition. I think that, building on what everybody else has sort of said, one of it was disappointing, I guess, in a way, to see nothing sort of materialize out of it, but it was also a really excellent lesson in, like, moving on and going, like, I made something that I'm proud of. It's got my name on it, whether it's the produced pilot or a finished pilot. It was just a good lesson in sort of letting go and going, as a writer, like, those are words and I can write more words. It can be a different idea, it can be something else. I think a lot of times people sort of do, I think, Max, you'd said, quite eloquently, that people sort of get really attached to their work. And I think that this overall, just even if nothing came out of it, this was a really good lesson in just sort of like cutting the strings and being like, cool, that was fun. What's next?
Ironically, I was actually just going to ask all of you, what was the takeaway from doing this contest? What did you learn? What did you regret? And what did you, take away that you were like, this was a positive? So thank you, Vanessa. Who else wants to chime in on that?
I'll go on that. So one of the things that I, struggle with at first is, so I'm in Boise, Idaho, where our show takes place, and there's a film scene like a few times a year here. And so it was rough at first because I just kind of had to sit around and wait. You know what I mean? Like I was just there's this window of time where I was like, all right, well, this is my project, because it's, I can write other stuff, but I wasn't necessarily attempting to shop kind of things, because this was kind of like a hobbyist thing that I was like working on films pretty frequently before this, and I'd pitched a couple of other things, but I had a day job, and I still do. And so I think, Vanessa, what you said really well was about getting past it, because there was a window of time where I was like, all right, I'm just hanging out day to day, because I got to wait to see how this thing shakes out. And I think I kind of realized at some point, like, I'm like, all right, it's time to move on to the next thing. And I imagine that if something like this competition was to happen in the future, I think I'd be more comfortable to get to that move on point pretty quickly, because it's not, like when you write stuff and when you work in this kind of industry, you do get used to that rejection. But it's a really interesting place, because when you're finally like, I got it, yes, and now you're kind of like, all right, you need to get used to like planning for that next thing. And as far as takeaways go, though, you know, as I mentioned, I'm in school studying game design, and video games something I'm really really passionate about as a medium, and I want to take a lot of those lessons we learned, and apply them to narrative game design. And pitching to Sean Layden, who has actually stepped down from Sony Interactive Entertainment, but that was a really exciting thing for me at the time, because that's someone that I would follow pretty regularly, and I would watch any of his presentations, and I watch his like press conferences and stuff like that. So that was really exciting, and that's been really helpful to people in the games industry are familiar with who that is. And I actually think one of the best things for my resume is now I have, if you go to PlayStation.com and you find like there's a Band in Boise page for our show, and that page has been really helpful, just for talking to people and getting eyes on projects in the games industry. And I'm kind of hoping to use that, because while it doesn't have the direct parallel, it's a brand that people are familiar with. And if I get other game projects under my belt, that definitely will hold some clout.
That's awesome. Shira, I think you are next, and then Rob.
Yeah, so I wanted to add to what Vanessa said, and I agree with her. I mean, I did say that I was disappointed that the project didn't move beyond a pilot, and that I didn't get any specific employment out of it. But I want to emphasize that I feel very fortunate that my pilot got made, and I got a lot out of it. And it's not just that line on my resume that says that I have a produced pilot. It's way beyond that. So for me, as coming into this contest as a writer, most of my creative experience was sitting at home and writing scripts in my pajamas. I had zero production experience, and being involved in all stages of production on the pilot was very eye-opening, because I didn't go to film school. I didn't know anything about how to bring my stories to the screen. And this program gave me a crash course. And nowadays, I write, I direct, and I produce my own content, which is great. And it was a huge thing for me. Beyond that, what I've learned from doing all these things is that the one most important resource that a filmmaker can have is a good network and supportive creative friends, and a good team to work with. And during this project, I got to meet so many amazing people. Just from from participating in the competition, I met one of the other creators who created The Many Lives of Ian Winters. His name is Steve Spalding, and he became a really great friend, and we share thoughts and ideas all the time. And in addition, I've kept in touch with some of the cast and crew who worked on my pilot, and the credits on my latest short film that I just finished making, they look like an Orthus reunion. It's hilarious. Like the cast, the cinematographer. One of the best features of the pilot, in my opinion, was the cinematography, which was done by Adam Bial, who is one of the most underappreciated artists I've met. And I was very fortunate to get to know him during the production, and even more grateful that he brought his talent to this short film that I just finished. And actor Jason McDonald, who played the part of the doctor on Orthus, did such a great job that later on, I think he was in the back of my mind while I was writing my latest short film. And I didn't think he was even an option because he's based in Atlanta, and we were filming the short in LA on a pathetic budget. But the minute he read the script, he was like, yeah, I'm coming. It's amazing. So this whole experience, even though it wasn't perfect, it was so useful, and I'm so grateful for all of it because I did take a lot out of it.
That's good. Rob, how about you?
Yeah, I wanted to just share what I've taken away, and probably the biggest thing that the competition did for me personally. It kind of took away the mystery of the film industry. When we were hanging out with like Marco Ramirez, uh, Justin Spitzer during these mentoring sessions, they're just people just like we are. And before the competition, I definitely think I kind of glamorized the process of filmmaking. And afterwards, um, one of the lessons I took away is just do things and take chances. And since the competition, I definitely have been taking a lot more chances with my projects. And me and my writing partner Zach, who I did The Forgotten Coast with and continue to work with, we're currently working on a comedy pilot called Postal, and we've been able to pitch it to like Netflix and Adult Swim, and that was just because we took chances and reached out to people. And basically, we're still unrepresented, but Netflix and Adult Swim were both receptive to our idea because they liked the idea, and we were able to get in the room and pitch to them just because we took those chances and we put our necks on the line and weren't afraid to look stupid and get rejected. So that's a big thing I've taken away from the contest was just do things, go out there and do it and take chances and don't be afraid to get rejected or look stupid.
That
Good
is
advice.
awesome. Tyler, Dan, Kevin, Bryce, do you guys want to chime in at all?
Oh man.
Sure. Go ahead.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh no, you go first. I'm gonna figure out what I want to say.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
go ahead, Tyler and Dan.
yeah. So Tyler here. Yeah. So I'll say I think it's very similar. And it's actually, I don't know. There's definitely something comforting, I guess, knowing that like even you guys who won seem to be having similar experiences that we kind of just learned to move on to the next project. Because yeah, I think we were like Max said, we were very tied to this project, and when ours didn't get made, we were definitely beating ourselves up for a little bit.
Yeah, it's our baby.
Yeah, but I think that's really the takeaway here is just you got to move on to the next project, and I think Rob was saying it that kind of opened up our eyes to like the reality of the filmmaking world.
Yeah, we sat with Marco too, and he gave us like great notes, and we were sitting with his writing assistant, and we like, it was just
and yeah, I think I definitely went into the project with or the contest, I mean, with like very high expectations. I was definitely envisioning, I was going to come home and I'd have a pilot ready, they'd have a parade for me and everything, and I'd be a hero. But obviously, that didn't happen. No, but you know what I mean. I definitely had like high expectations that this was going to make my career. And it sounds like, all of us seem to be having very similar experiences, whether our pilot was made or not,
Yeah, we're all just chugging along.
Yeah, just trying to make it.
Yep.
Yeah, kind of going back to what they're saying and what I was saying earlier is Marco Ramirez or Justin Spitzer, they're great writers, but they've had that lucky break, and everyone has the potential to have that lucky break if you put in the work and you take those chances. And that's kind of what I was saying, and Tyler and Dan were touching on as well.
Kevin?
Yeah, I think for us, we never had pitched before ever. So, I got a business degree, so I had some idea of how to do like business related pitches. But when we met up with our mentor, Gloria, she was incredible in helping us learn what it means to tell a story in the pitch itself. And so I think in addition to everything that everyone else is saying, because yeah, it's exactly, there's don't be afraid to drop your baby and keep moving kind of thing. It also helped me figure out how I wanted to move forward with this. And like um we started to we started to talk to like artists, because we weren't really sure where to go in terms of creating more content for it to make it more viable, and things like that. So um having these experiences where they were like, okay, so when you're making a pitch, you want to lead them through it, but not in like a business way, but more in a way that engages them. I think that helped us create something that was that we like now, that we want to continue pitching.
Nice. Bryce, anything to chime in?
Yeah, I mean, I think that Kev and I definitely felt like sort of the babies of the competition. Like when we got there, like all that we had done in film really was kind of campus movie fest type stuff. So this really felt like a starting point for us. We met so many amazing and talented people out there, and Gloria especially helped us and inspired us to take this pilot and take this show concept and make it something like really incredible and heartfelt. And even though we didn't win, this whole competition uh, led to us working on the show consistently for the last few years, and we really like love what we have now, and that would have never happened if it weren't for the competition.
Awesome. Good insights all. So, shameless plug time. If people want to find you, we'll just go on down the line. Rob, how do people find you?
Yeah, so my Twitter is the Rob Sorensen, Rob Sorensen. Um, Currently working on, as I touched on earlier, a show called Postal that we're taking around to different studios trying to get our pilot made. Shortly after the contest, we made a short film called Nightbird, which we took around the film festival circuit. That's on Vimeo and YouTube, just Nightbird short film. Yeah, that's
Awesome.
pretty much it.
Awesome. Max, how about you? How can people find you?
All right, so I'm on Twitter just at I am Max Cannon. So I produce all my stuff under my LLC, which is White Font Media, and you can go to whitefontmedia.com. And on there, I have just some of the projects working on. I have a handful of short films. I'm in the middle of trying to get another one going off. And then on there, you'll see some games that I've been developing as well, and that I'm trying to kind of weave some narrative stuff into.
Awesome. Vanessa, how about you? How can people find you?
I'm on Twitter if I'm on anything. I am currently an executive at a development in development at a production company, which you can find on IMDb. And yeah, that's sort of where I am. I've been teaching a lot of screenwriting in different places, especially in New York. So you can I'm sort of just around. You can find me.
Awesome. Tyler, Dan, how about you guys?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at the Omrani, and Tyler.
Yeah, I'm just my first name, last name, Tyler Terribile, on Instagram, Twitter. But we have a sketch comedy channel that's probably easier to find because our last names are impossible to spell. Toasted Entertainment
on YouTube,
and Instagram, Twitter.
And everything. So yeah, we've been trying to keep.
Trying to keep busy with that. Keep just comedy sketches whenever we can, and we're working on a feature film, as we said, which has been chugging along, but in the works.
That's what you do in quarantine.
Awesome. Kevin, how can people find you? Kevin?
Oh, sorry. There we go. I was
Okay.
muted. I am on Twitter and Instagram. My Twitter is a really silly name, but it's Crimson Chen, Crimson _ QIAN, my last name. And Instagram is Kevin Chen, though, with underscores in between it all. But you can also just search up Kev Chen, and my face should pop up. Yeah, and that's really what I do. I also have an Actors Access if you want to hire me as an actor. Thanks so much.
Bryce, how about you? How can people find you?
I am on Twitter as well, at Bryce Irvin. And for a little over a year now, I've been working on a musical feature film called David. You can find more information about that at David Movie Musical. That's been the main thing. Kev and I are both producers on that project.
Awesome. And Shira, how about you?
My production company is called Synaptic Creations. Our website is synapticcreations.com, and we have a YouTube channel also called Synaptic Creations, where you can see my first short film and a trailer for the next one. And the website connects to all my social media accounts, although I'm not very active on them because I find that it's very bad for you. But from time to time, I will take a peek. So I'm easy to find. Just Google me.
Great. Well, thank you guys all so much for taking the time to chat with us about your experiences.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Very glad to be here.
A lot of fun.
All right. And for all of you listening out there, make sure you check out their websites. Check them out on Twitter and Instagram. You can find all their information in the show notes as well. Check out the shorts that got them in the competition in the first place. And you can check us out at writersgrouptherapy.com. We'll talk to you soon.